Hey everybody, hey, how's it going? This is a video I'm going to make talking a little bit about TNA Wrestling and their recent news of the termination of some contracts that they had. Some younger athletes that they had been bringing in some actual younger talent and basically getting rid of it. TNA Wrestling is a smaller promotion that is, for the most part, based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and they do a lot of the southern states of like Atlanta, Tennessee, and Florida. And I mean, if you follow TNA Wrestling, I don't know. First off, I'm sorry that if you follow them closely, if you're a huge fan of TNA Wrestling, you know. I'm not a huge fan. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest fan of what they've done, but I would say that I've followed them since the beginning, and I was really excited about an alternative wrestling promotion because I've really thought over the last 10 years plus, for the most part, that WWE wrestling has gotten so stale. They've gotten to a point where they're basically sitting on their hands and they can throw any crap in the faces of the fans, and everyone's like, well, there's no real alternative, so this is what we have to watch. And this is what they've been giving us. They gave us stale storylines where there's really no depth at all to them. The characters have really goofy in-ring promos, and especially the backstage awkward promos. That's what I consider very awkward, because usually a WWE wrestler... I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, which I probably should just stop talking about now, because I could make a whole video about that, but it's just so bizarre. I think that WWE is not that enjoyable, and the fact that Raw is 3 hours, I can hardly stomach a 3-hour professional wrestling television show. The pay-per-views are another thing. They do great pay-per-views, for the most part. The wrestling is, safe, and it's entertaining, and the storylines at least make sense. In TNA, I don't know, man. I always turn the other cheek, and I always just say, well, they're still a younger company. They've been around for 11 years now, and they're still learning how to do things. But I just don't know what the hell they're doing anymore. The recent thing that they've been doing for the last, 10 to 12 months is they do this promotion called Gut Check, where they're taking like indie wrestlers or people that have been wrestling down in the OVW farm system, and they bring them on to live TV or a taped show on TV, whatever it is. It's on Spike TV, so it's a nationally televised program on Thursday nights at 9/8 Central. Impact Wrestling Thursday nights on Spike TV. And they put them in the ring, and then they let them wrestle whoever. Usually, it used to be they wrestle like an actual TNA wrestler, but now they have people wrestling against each other. And then they're like the two participants are wrestling against each other, and then a bunch of judges say, well, you got to work on this, you got to do this, come back in another year or two and brush up. Or else they say, hey, you're so talented, you're amazing, I'm going to hire you. And so they hire him, they bring him on, and they, whatever, they put him down in OVW, or they, back down to OVW, or this, they send him to OVW, put him on a TNA contract, and anyway, and some of them have even been in some storylines, like Joey Ryan and Christian York have been used, not so much in recent months, as much as they should have been. But anyway, recently, there's actually 3 or 4 Gut Check winners that had won contracts that had been on TV spots, and these TV spots are like 10 to 15 minutes long a piece, where they come in and they do this whole judging thing anyway. Taylor Hendricks was a female wrestler. I believe that she's the only female that's joined Gut Check that won a contract through Gut Check. Joey Ryan, who's some people hate him, and I always consider that if people hate him, then he's doing his job right. But if people hate him because he's annoying and they think he sucks, then that's not right. But I thought he was great. I thought he was a really good heel. I thought he was entertaining. He's a very good wrestler. He never got a chance. He never even really got an angle in TNA. Other than Al Snow, with that feud that they had with Al Snow, which was very entertaining, because I enjoy anything Al Snow does. I think he's a good wrestler. He's a seasoned veteran, obviously. And then Christian York, who, watching TNA and looking at Christian York, his physique is phenomenal. His in-ring work, while I do think he's a little slow because of how bulky he's gotten over the last 10 years, because he actually was a pretty big wrestler. I shouldn't say ever a big wrestler, but he was in TNA and he was in Ring of Honor quite a bit in a lot of indie circuit, and he ran into a lot of issues with his past. And some demons came out of the closet and whatever. He had issues come up, and he was in a bad place for a while, but he got himself cleaned up, and he came back and he tried out for that gut checks thing on TNA, and it was actually really, really well done. And he's had some decent matches, and they've been before he just disappeared, and that's probably because their TNA creative couldn't think of anything to do with him. They sent him home, and he just sat home for like the last 4 months or something like that. But before that, they were giving him a decent mid-card push, and it was like shocking, because TNA doesn't even know how to do a mid-card push to anybody. They just kind of do it themselves. Samoa Joe rose through the ranks. I mean, AJ Styles back in 10 years ago when he finally got his spot, Christopher Daniels, they do it themselves. There's no real mid-card at all in TNA. I don't even know what the mid-card would be. You're either a main eventer and you're in the main event scene, which is usually wrapped around annoying storylines that never end, or you're just a dude who comes out and wrestles and then you're let go. And that's what they did with these gut check guys. Christian York had a decent mid-card push. He was wrestling guys with Jeff Hardy, taking him to the limits. He was in the ring with like Samoa Joe, and he had a couple matches with RVD. They were really good matches, and they kept having him almost winning. And it was like awesome, because it was like this young guy, brand new, fresh face in TNA, and he's taking these, big name wrestling stars that came from a larger promotion up in Connecticut, in TNA, and he took them to the limits, and it was one of those like, oh cool, this is awesome, because what they could do is a year from now, once he builds himself up and takes out some other lower mid-card wrestlers and wins like a mid-card title, like say the TV title, or even gets himself in a world title match, have him get put over by one of the larger big names guys like your Jeff Hardys and your RBD, or I don't know, anybody, and it would have made this guy a star. And they just stopped him. They screwed it up. They let go of Taylor Hendricks, they let go of Joey Ryan, and they let go of Christian York this past week. And not only do I think these are terrible moves, it's terrible news for TNA, because it just basically shows like, you guys are making barely anything, but we need to preserve the ridiculous contracts we gave to all these old washed up wrestlers, and you guys aren't as important to that. Even though you're the future of this industry, at least what we hope the industry is, which we've told our fans on TV, that the gut check was basically us going out and finding the future of the company, but we're just letting you guys go. And not only does that kill the storylines, because it was Bound for Glory of 2012 in October, where Joey Ryan won his contract. Well, now the end of June, and he's fired. Like, what was his contract for? What was the point of that storyline where he and Al Snow had that huge feud that built up from like the third month of gut check, which was like in July of last year, a year ago, and then they built that all the way up until October between Al Snow and Joey Ryan? Well, Joey Ryan wins, but then he gets let go by the company. Like, who makes these decisions? Who thinks this through? In TNA, this doesn't seem like anyone is doing it. It's driving me crazy. Like, I try to follow them. I want there to be an alternative to the WWE so badly, that I always look at all of their screw-ups over the years, how many times they bring in people that wind up screwing them over, like the Scott Hall, like, oh, we're going to pay Scott Hall a bunch of money and he doesn't show up. We're going to bring in Ric Flair and he just, I don't know, he just, begs for his paychecks ahead of schedule and completely turns into a prick. And then of course there's this Hulk Hogan thing going on now where they're paying him way too much money and he's just continuing to be... man, I just don't know. They do a lot of things correctly, though, and it seems like in the last year alone that things and storylines have been actually making sense. But the only problem is TNA has no freaking idea how to finish off a storyline. Like, none at all. They'll have something building up to a match or two, and instead of, like, continuing the storyline or even ending the storyline decently, they just drop it. It just, everything that they do just falls off the face of the planet. And the biggest storyline that TNA is doing right now is this Aces and Eights angle, which has gone on for about 6 months too long. In April, they discovered the guy behind the whole thing is Bully Ray, even though the Aces and Eights clubhouse has been beating the crap out of him for the last 6 months before that. They even kidnapped his wife, and oh my god, all these silly storylines. But apparently he set the whole thing up because it was the ultimate swerve. Vince Russo must be like, what? I didn't even think that was going to happen. And Bully Ray is like, I got all you guys. But don't even get me started. I could rant about the aces and eights forever. This angle is just killing me. The music sucks. The wrestlers wrestling in leather vests and jeans just looks so stupid. I'm just so over this. This was a neat idea when they all were wearing masks. At least it had something to it. Went completely the opposite direction that I had hoped it would be. I could do another video ranting about that damn angle, but really this is about those young guys, and I feel so shitty for those kids, because, I mean, Christian York is in his 30s. He's not a kid anymore, and Joey Ryan's actually, like, late 20s, early 30s. They're like, indie wrestlers that have so much experience about the road, and they show up, they do their job, they do as best they can, and then they're just let go. And it drives me crazy. And I heard 2 things about what TNA is planning, or has done already. One is that, I don't know who the idiot is in TNA, but he wants to bring in the old WWE guy, MVP, Montavious Porter or something, MVP. He was a basketball or football. He was good at all sports type character in the WWE, which I guess he had a couple good matches, but I can't think of anything memorable at all that he's ever done. My fear is that they're letting go of all these wrestlers to bring in him. And that just proves even more that TNA is just completely off the fucking map on not understanding the business and not understanding what they're supposed to do at all with bringing in the right kind of talent and building a freaking company. I just don't understand how they're not looking at the template that WWF put together in the mid-90s to the early 2000s. Like, they built that template. They tell you exactly what to do. You think of good storylines, you finish storylines, you have a compelling wrestling program, and you use guys that are cost-effective to the company. TNA, they don't build any mid-card. The only people that they've sort of built up was Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. Who else? Bobby Roode. Okay, Bobby Roode was a good one. But that they screwed up. Other than when he turned heel and he realized he couldn't beat James Storm, and he cheated to win that title, that was awesome. But then he held the belt for a really long time, which the WWE then copied with CM Punk, just saying. I don't want to be a jerk, but they did it like a year later, the same damn storyline that Bobby Roode went through. And now, like, it's been over a year since Bobby Roode's been in the main event picture. Like, that guy's amazing. Like, why did they just stop him? He's the guy that should be holding the title all the time. He's great on the mic, he's great in the ring, he doesn't get hurt, he doesn't hurt anybody. Everyone loves wrestling him. He should be the guy that has the belt like 4 times a year, even if he loses it 3 times during the year. Because they could put any face they wanted against him to chase the title. Anybody. Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle. I mean, these are all money pay-per-views. They just can't think. This is too difficult for them to think about. This is too hard. Bobby Roode is an amazing heel. Austin Aries, an amazing wrestler, but probably a better face than a heel, actually, because everybody loves cheering for the underdog. And Austin Aries comes in the ring a whole 1.5 feet shorter than everyone else. How is anybody going to treat him like a significant heel? I mean, he's a great heel, but he's a way better face. I love cheering for Austin Aries. Fuck TNA, what the hell are you doing? You're driving me crazy, man. You let go of all these young kids to bring an MVP. If that happens, I've already boycotted a month. I'm not going to watch any TNA for a month. I don't care what they're doing, unless something amazing happens. Last week I heard Austin Aries and Chris Sabin was a great match, but I don't even like the build-up to it. It doesn't make any sense. The last week before this, they had Austin Aries and Bully Ray face-to-face, where he took off the mask of suicide. And I'm like, holy crap, this sets up an Austin Aries Bully Ray feud for Destination X. Well, then now I guess they put the X Division title on the line just this last Thursday, and Chris Sabin beat Austin Aries for the belt again. So now it's Chris Sabin and Bully Ray. Even though they built up and set up Austin Aries and Bully Ray, it is now Chris Sabin and Bully Ray instead. So totally makes sense, TNA. Just fucking change the storyline every week. We don't care. Nobody's following it anymore anyway. The ratings are abysmal. Like it's been the same since 2006 when you guys came out with having no big name wrestlers at all on the card. It's just crazy. Like, And then oh, get this, when as soon as they let all these 5 kids go, and there was some other guys that they let go of too. I can only think of 3 off the top of my head because it's the gut check wrestlers. But then they signed Taz to like a 2-year contract. Taz, bring me back Don West. Bring back that Todd kid. He was doing just fine. Why would you spend money on Taz? What is he doing? Selling you shirts? Is he a road agent? Does he do anything else? I don't know. I'm actually asking these things because why would you want to spend money that you could be giving 3 young, talented wrestlers? Why would you spend it on an announcer? And Taz isn't even a good announcer. I don't think he's good. This is just me, man. I don't know. But I'm just ranting. I wanted to say something about what the hell TNA is doing. It's easy to do because every week they have storylines and they make decisions that piss me off so badly. And it's just like they're not getting anywhere. And they're cutting so many corners now when you're watching their show. You can tell. Like the Titantron thing or the TNA Tron or whatever, the video that they got is just getting so generic. It almost looks like somebody made it in Windows Movie Maker or put a Windows screensaver up of their graphic in 3D. Like, it's just like Bobby Roode, the It Factor. It's just like the chain comes across and it's like, ooh, I made that in Mario Paint once. Like, are you serious? Like, that was worse than anything WWE did or WWF did in like the late 90s when they were at least just, all you had to do is show highlights of their moves and then put their name come up once in a while. That's all you have to do. Whew. I don't get it, man. I think TNA is going in the right direction with a lot of things, but they are fucking up on so many other things. Honestly, if WWF wanted to do something cool, bring in Christian York and Joey Ryan and do something with those two. Even if they just went down to the whatever that Florida Championship Wrestling or the NXT, those I see money when I see Christian York. That guy needs some polish in the ring. He needs to get his speed up a little bit more. But dude, he rocks and he's a great character. He just looks awesome. Joey Ryan's a great heel. So weird. And they have no explanation for this. If they were planning on letting go of people, why don't they put them in the ring and have them have their careers ended? Like, have some great, wrestler come up that's they want to build up and have them squash them in the ring and break their arm or something and like, oh no, and then have some kind of storyline where we won't see Joey Ryan again for some time. He's injured. Anything. Just so that it isn't just gone. Like, oh, Joey Ryan's gone. Oh well. Just come on, TNA, give us something. And if they can't figure it out on what to do, why are they? Who is making these decisions, and why do they keep hiring like ex-WWF employees that would have been let go by the company? Why are they hiring these people to write storylines? Why don't they interview people and just figure out how to make these storylines make sense and run a company correctly? I just don't get it. Bring back Jeff Jarrett. Fire fucking Hogan and Bischoff. Let Jarrett write some storylines. Bring Jarrett in as a character. I can't believe I'm saying this because I honestly was so sick of Jeff Jarrett towards the end that I couldn't wait until he was gone. And now he's gone, and now I'm like, oh, Jeff Jarrett's TNA. He needs to be there, at least as something. A mid-carder, someone to elevate some of the younger guys, anything. But they've completely ignored his existence. Oh, man. I gotta do separate videos. I gotta do one about the Aces and Eights angle, which is awful. I gotta do one about WWE's current programming, the current product, which has had 2 decent Raws in a row. Like, who's writing these shows that have been decent? Especially during a time when I think TNA sucks. That's been interesting. WWE has been better than TNA in the last couple of weeks. And then this TNA's Hall of Fame. Oh my God. Why are they having a Hall of Fame? What do they even understand what a Hall of Fame is? I don't understand, man. Who calls it the Hall of Fame? Why don't you call it like the TNA Prestige, like Marquee Wrestlers of the Year or something? They could call it anything, but they call it the Hall of Fame, and then they just let the wrestlers keep wrestling. Like even Kurt Angle said, I was really shocked to hear I was going to be in the Hall of Fame because I plan on wrestling for 2 more years with TNA. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they expect you to keep wrestling even when you're in the Hall of Fame. What? Like what? In the NFL? The Hall of Fame, you don't get in the Hall of Fame until you retire. That's kind of how the WWE's works. That's how every Hall of Fame works, is you get to the Hall of Fame after your career's over and they evaluate your career. But Sting's already in the Hall of Fame and he was wrestling for the world title like 2 months ago. Screw you, TNA, and stop fucking up every week. and get those kids' contracts back and get rid of all the excess fat in this company and let's get it back to what it was. Arg, man. I just don't get it. I just don't get it at all. TNA, you disappoint me. I hope things turn around. I really do. I really do. But get your shit together.